Hey guys, this is Chris of Tuttle Nutrition. Today we're going to talk chicken, okay? Now, chicken, it can be a difficult one for some people. Some people don't like it because it gets dry. I'm going to tell you all the ins and outs of chicken, what you can do for better quality, for better taste, how to cook it, how to prepare it, how to store it, and what can you do on the fly if you're in a hurry, okay? So first off, I just want to say, the cheaper the chicken, obviously, quality-wise, it's going to decline, and that's totally fine. It just means it's going to take a little more effort to cook chicken that is $1.10 a pound versus chicken that's $4.99 a pound, okay? Now, obviously, there's certain variances of brands that can vary in price outside of quality. What I found out, my favorite place to buy is a Stop and Shop. Now, I know not everybody has that, but what they do is they have different levels of chicken, I call it. They have like their subpar chicken, which is generally like $2 a pound, which are breasts. They're decent. And then you move into their all natural version, which these are chicken tenders, okay? And then they have their Nature's Promise, and they have their Nature's Promise organic. I buy the Nature's Promise version, and there's the breasts, here are the tenders. Now, generally tenders, because they're tender, are softer, more moist, really the same breakdown of protein and fats as the regular breasts. They are smaller, they're already pre-trimmed. So to the way I look at it is less yield of fat trimmings. So really cost and the taste is totally worth it. Can range anywhere from $2.50 to $3.19 a pound. And I think that's generally worth it considering the taste, the less of the yield, and ease of cook. Easy to cook because they're narrower pieces, so heat can travel around it much easier than a big piece where you get one side ends up being very dry, one side ends up not being cooked enough. And we'll talk about how to address that as well. So here we go. We've got the chicken tenders, different levels. As you can see, you know, this one's $5 a pound. This one's $4.19 a pound. And then their lower level chicken is about $3 a pound, all tenders. These are breasts. We're going to talk about how to cook those. You definitely don't want to take the whole breast and try to cook it in a pan or a grill because you'll dry the heck out of it. I'm going to show you guys how to slice it. And these are the breasts that I use. I generally, over years of eating chicken, I get sick of breasts, and I actually will just always do tenders. Clearly, as you guys can see, they're not tenders like the ones with bread on them in the freezer section, okay? Not to be confused. For ladies out there, you guys are in a hurry. You guys generally don't eat as much meat as men do. So sometimes if you're in a bind, I know a lot of companies make these now. They're already like pre-cooked chicken breasts. They do have some rib meat in them, but as far as the breakdown cooked, 3 ounces for 2 grams of fat, it's totally acceptable. You might get a little bit less protein per ounce because it does have some retained water for moisture, but these are never going to be dry. They're going to be flavorful, and the other downfalls, they're going to have quite a bit of sodium above and beyond what you normally get with regular breasts, of course. But it's a good fail-safe thing to get if you're in a hurry, you're in a bind, you need chicken fast, and you only need it for a day or two. You pick up a couple packs of these, and you can use these in place of your chicken breast, whether it's a sandwich in a pasta dish with rice or whatever. But these are a good choice for a quick fix if you're in a bind. Almost all grocery stores have them, and there's a wide variety of them. So make sure you look carefully on which ones to get. I always recommend probably getting the original roasted, or you just get the regular one. Any ones with a lot of marinades might be adding a tremendous amount of sodium, and you don't want to be eating 900 milligrams per serving of sodium on one of these. You're going to be very water retentive, very thirsty, okay? So the tenders here, you don't need to cut them because they're already individualized. The downfall of tenders, you get a tendon in them. So I tell you, when you cook them, you're done cooking them, and you're pulling apart your chicken, measuring it, you can just yank the tendon out. It never bothers me. Some people it does. Here we have the breasts. We got our good old trusty serrated Cutco knife, which in my opinion is the best way to cut chicken. So some people cut the fat off, before they cook. Some people cut it off after. After sometimes a little easier because you can just peel it off. But I'll first trim the fat real quick. Like again, breasts are really big, so you got to make sure the heat transfer is very easy considering you're cooking it in a pan. Now, I'm not an advocate at all of cooking chicken in an oven ever, unless it's a roasted rotisserie chicken. Of course, that's a different story, but we're talking about breasts. Oven chicken, to me, baked chicken, just doesn't taste very good, very dry. unless you have some sort of system down, which I'm not aware of. And if you like it, then stay with it. If not, check out these tips, okay? So I'd like to cut this breast in half. Generally, this is not a safe way of cutting. When you cut towards yourself, you kind of put it down, but this is how I do it. Not exactly recommended. And I'll cut it in half one more time. So here I cut the breast down the long way, sliced it in half. So these two pieces you can see you're going to cook very quickly. Thicker pieces might take a little bit longer, but generally they're the same thickness. So the thickness of them are even enough where you're going to cook it, it's going to be even. One side's not going to be really dry, one side's not going to be moist, and you're not going to be spending 35 minutes trying to cook chicken in a pan. Again, cut down the long way. Also, guys, food safety. Raw chicken hands, you know, not every chicken has salmonella, a certain percent does. You always want to take precautions. So when you cook chicken, internal temperature should be 165. You shouldn't be grabbing stuff around your kitchen or your face when you have raw chicken hands. So I like to do is I keep it on the cutting board, and then I'll transfer it for the fork onto the pan after I wash my hands, okay? And we're going to show you exactly how to do that. All right, guys, so we're over here. We're on the burners. The pan's all warmed up. Chicken breasts are cut. We got chicken tenders. We're going to do tenders in one pan, and we're going to do breasts in the other. These two pans are my favorite pans. I mentioned in a previous video before. Zwilling's and Henkel's is this pan with a large lip, and there's a lid. This is ideal for cooking chicken because you can put the lid on it. It makes the chicken much more moist when you cook it. Because you get the heat from the oven, from the burner, and you get the heat trapped in. It keeps it very moist. And we have a regular nice pan right here. Both are very high quality nonstick pans. These pans are not cheap. Pam spray, canola spray, or whatever. Canola has a higher smoking point, so I tend to use that. You don't need very much, and these pans actually don't really need any at all. But I'll just light spritz it. Got the raw chicken hand. Just make sure you don't get the hand switched up where you're taking your raw chicken hand and touching everything around. And what I like to do, some people like to season them, beforehand or marinate them. I like to season it after. I know it's totally backwards traditionally, but I like to change my seasoning the day of. So cooking the chicken correctly, moist, internal temperature 165, guarantees me that it's safe to eat, it's still moist, and then I can change my condiment, my spice the day of to change variety instead of being stuck with one particular flavored chicken for 3 or 4 days, which is totally fine if that's what you like. That's just not the way I like to do it anymore. We're going to do the tenders in this pan. This is my favorite tender pan. Best pan of all time right here. It's the all-purpose pan. You'll see how fast this pan cooks this chicken. And in the end, we'll show you how moist it is. So you can see the setup I have here. I got, the raw stuff was here. This is the clean plate for the cooked chicken to go. I'm going to put my lid on. This is raw, so we're going to remove this now. And we're going to get a couple minutes to cook. All right, so just the important thing to, when you're cooking chicken is you're handling raw chicken, salmonella. It's one of the, has the highest temperature killing point of 165. So generally you want to keep your hands clean. So what I like to do is when I have chicken raw, I have it on one side on the cutting board, and I'll use one hand to put the chicken into the pan. Take the cutting board into the sink, wash my hands, and then come back knowing that this is all clean. This is clean for the cooked chicken. Chicken's obviously in there cooking, which is going to be killed by the temperature, the salmonella, if it contains salmonella. Not all chicken does. And that way it's safety. Too many people will let their chicken thaw out on the countertop. That's how you get sick. You may be doing that your whole life, but you're only going to have diarrhea and vomiting once or hospitalized once before you never do it ever again. And I know, actually, I had 3 of my clients, one of them was hospitalized, 2 of them were sick because they would take the frozen chicken out of the freezer, put it on the counter all day long, come back the next day when it's thawed out, cooked it, ate it, deathly ill. So that's not a good practice. When you're thawing out chicken, put it in the fridge on the bottom shelf, let it thaw out for a few days, and that's how you do it. Or you run it under warm water and you thaw it right away before you cook it, not letting it sit out for more than 2 hours. Soft spatula again, so you don't damage the pan. Because you got to take care of your pans. You spend the good money on these pans. You want them to last, and they're very fragile with a fork. As much as you might be careful jabbing with a fork, you're going to possibly mess it up. Other thing is temperature of the pan. You want like a low to medium heat for like a longer duration. If you try to like sear it, kind of like you do steak on a grill, and then you close it. Remember, steak can be kind of rare inside without any fear of bacteria because it's not ground like beef. You're going to dry it out. You're going to have a hard outside of the chicken, and on the inside, it's still going to be moist, if not pink still. So that's very important. We're going to flip this chicken. This one's almost there. Again, it's always good to cook chicken with a lid. I much prefer it with a lid. It cooks much faster, much more efficient, and the less chance of overcooking, because everybody knows what dry chicken tastes like, and that's hard to eat the next day. So do yourself a favor. Get a lid, just like that pan. See, that's lightly brown. That's not too bad. Temperature on this might go down a little bit to cook the rest. And now you can see this pan cooks it so well that the outside, the top of it is not even touching the heat, but it's already turned white, not pink anymore. Kind of like that side was still pink. This is going to be done in about another 2-3 minutes. Flip these bad boys over. Tenders are the way to go. I mean, you guys get over the tendon thing, just yank it out. It's so more moist. You get used to eating. The only problem is you get used to eating them, and you spend the money on the tenders for 50 to 75 cents more per pound. You get so accustomed to it, you're not going to ever go back to breasts. That's what exactly happened to me. I just can't do it breasts anymore. And now a lot of people are like, well, chicken at restaurants tastes so good. Why is that? A lot of restaurants use chicken with rib meat. Rib meat is technically dark meat, so it could be a processed chicken with rib and dark meat together, which is generally a little higher in fat, but much more moist, or it has retained water, up to 5% retained water, or of chicken broth. Sometimes like Tyson brand uses retained chicken broth, so the breasts are very plump and very moist, and sometimes when you cook them, it almost kind of tastes rubbery. So when I like to get the chicken, that's why I buy Nature's Promise. It has 1% retained water. That way, that's how a lot of companies will get away with selling chicken for a greater pound per weight because the water gives it more weight. This was raw. Remember, I was flipping it, so we're going to ditch this. And all we need now is our favorite Polder high fast temperature read thermometer, which we're going to check the chicken in a couple minutes. Good thing to know the Pam spray is, people are like, oh, can I use fat-free cooking spray? This is not fat-free. I can't believe it's not butter spray. It's not fat-free. The first ingredient is canola oil or olive oil. So the portion size on here is a quarter of a second spray, 1/4 of a second. So that's it. If you go like this, that's like adding 2 teaspoons of olive oil to your pan. So keep that in mind. This is not fat-free. These are all full of fat. That's all it is. And people think these are fat-free. I can cook with it. I can add it to it. I can add spray butter to my toast or this and that. No, you're just adding all the fat calories back, which you could just potentially just added butter, which I much rather do personally. So we'll see how fast this is. This pan's unbelievable. And in the meantime, we'll just put this pan right over here. Always check the thicker part of the meat, obviously. Thinner part's going to be cooked quicker. The thicker part's going to generally take a little bit longer. Look at this. The chicken's almost already done. Almost there. Obviously, these fat pieces might take a little bit longer. We've got about a couple minutes left on that. And those things will be done. It'll be perfect. And what's cool, too, on the thermometers, on the little protective thing on the reader, it gives you all the breakdown of exactly what everything should be in Fahrenheit and Celsius. It's such a good tool, and it's not expensive at all. I found it on Amazon. I'm sure you can find it in a lot of different places, but that's where I got it from. Cheap, ships in a couple days. Puts the best thermometer by far. I'm sure there's other good thermometers, but for the cost and how long this has lasted me, I think it may have been 12 bucks. It lasted me 6 years. It's worth it. And it never lets me down. We're gonna check this chicken over here, see what we got. Breasts take longer to cook for whatever reason. Look at that, it's done. And yes, I do check every individual piece. You still got a couple more minutes, and I bet you all these are done. Oh yeah. Yep. Sometimes I'll just go right to the biggest, fattest piece, and the fattest piece is done, I'll just yank them all off. As you can see here, it reads super fast. Look at that one. That one's not even done. That one's not done yet. Yeah, that one's done. Sometimes people will be like, oh, it's so much effort to cook all that. But you know what? If you're into nutrition and you're into this and you want it for the long haul and you want it to taste good, this is the effort it takes. Hence why you go to restaurants, you spend so much money at a restaurant for food to taste good, because you have professional chefs making you food doing all just this. So it just does take a little bit of effort. That's it. People can't be too afraid of effort. That's good. This one's done. Now I'm going to use this lid to finish off this one. And another good trick, it tells you actually not to do this. See, your pan gets very yucky. You put a little bit of water on it. Put it back under fire. And it just comes right off itself. It's going to boil up like this. And then when you go over to the sink, you just take the water and spray it, and it comes right off. You don't have to scrub or do anything. As you can see, it's all off. So now you got your breasts and your chicken tenders. And I'm gonna let this cool for a minute, and I'm gonna show you the difference of quality inside the meat when I pull it apart, and how much more tender it is than the regular breasts. And I'll describe to you the tendon as well. All right, guys, so the chicken's cooked. It's all done. I have tenders and breasts here. To each his own. I'm a tender guy. And these are the breasts. They're both high quality chicken. So this is not bottom of the barrel chicken. Let's say mid-grade. So as you can see here, these are the breasts, right? It's cooked to internal temperature. Inside, nice and moist, right? You see if I pull it apart, it's a little tough, right? Now this, look. See, it pulls apart almost like pulled chicken. Super, super moist. Much easier to eat, even after the next day. Now the tendon I was referring to, in here, we'll find another piece to show the tendon. There's a tendon piece in here, and it goes down the line of the chicken. And when it's not so hot and it's easy breakable, you usually can slide it right out. But it doesn't bother me too much. It's just at the tip of the breast. I mean, the tip of the tender. But it's worth it. I mean, look at this. It's super moist. You take this, add a couple teaspoons of macadamia nut oil, mix it together with whatever seasoning you want, and it's like you got moist pulled chicken that tastes like rib meat that's not rib meat. Very lean, very high quality. I recommend tenders. You can see that I do. Breasts are still fine too. They're obviously cheaper, but like, as you can see, they're harder to break apart. They're a little tougher. The next day in the car, if you're eating it cold, a little harder to get down if you're eating 5-6 ounces of breast per meal. So there you have it. You got your tenders and your breasts. That's how you cook it. That's how I recommend the pans you need. Internal temperature 165. Hope you guys learned some good stuff. If you like it, subscribe below and or follow us on Tuttle Nutrition on Instagram.